This is the Irish Maker Podcast, a show where we talk to makers, crafters, and builders from all over the island of Ireland. I'm your host, Nathan Wheeler, and let's jump right into the episode. Hello, makers, crafters, and builders. We're back with the Irish Maker Podcast. So, Stephen Hynes restores antique petrol pumps. That's what I said, antique petrol pumps. These things are like back in the 50s, the 60s, some even the early 40s. They stand about 7 foot tall, and they are the coolest things you have ever seen in your entire life. I have tried to get involved in restoring a petrol pump. I bought a petrol pump about 2 years ago during lockdown, and I have always thought they're the coolest thing in the world. And I want to share with you today an incredible craftsman who's been restoring these things for the last few years. He's been on RTE, he's been on the Late Late Show, he's been on so much, and he's got such a passion for this. And to introduce Stephen Hynes. Stephen, how are you?
How are you, buddy? All good.
You're looking very happy and content in your makerspace.
Yeah, I'm always happy and content. I come out here about 20 times a day, even
You
for
just
5 minutes.
kind of twiddle out and kind of look at something, grab something, and then back inside.
Most of the time is come in and spin around in circles, not knowing what I came in here for, and then going back out and remembering and coming back in. So that makes up for the 20.
Yeah, listen, I know I feel the exact same way. Sometimes I come into a room or I come down into the workshop and I know what I'm supposed to do, but then I completely
Yeah,
forget why I'm there. And I'm kind of sitting there holding two things and I'm like, oh, I've got a plan for this.
yeah,
And then I'll be
yeah,
like, oh, something shiny. And then you kind of run off and you get distracted and you go work on something else.
yeah. And I'm sure you're like me and most other makers. You never have one project on the go. There's generally several or several hundred, and that's what gets you so distracted because you go in to start one thing and then you find yourself going, oh, I'll just do this for a minute. And then 2 hours later, you realize you didn't get anything that you actually meant to go in there for to do.
Do you know what? It is actually always the way. Like I always struggle with trying to keep focused on one project. And like you
Mhm.
might even find different projects in different areas of making. So sometimes I'll be working on I'm working on this little house at the moment. It's for like a
Ah,
project or
no,
something. It's like a little replica house. But when I get
wow.
bored with that, I go work on some cosplay projects or like I am today, I'm recording and
No,
then you kind of come back to it and you're like, oh, I should really get back to that, and you end up double jobbing on different
yeah,
projects. But anyway, look, we could
yeah.
talk about that all day. I want to talk about the reason you're here is the petrol pumps. So Stephen, tell me how you got involved in restoring petrol pumps. Look, how does someone even start doing that?
I suppose it starts with getting the idea into your head that you want to, that you really like these things. Like you have to like something, obviously, to want to do it. And I remember probably doing my leaving cert. No, I wasn't actually. I was an apprentice plumber, and watching Discovery all the time. You'd always be watching American Restoration. They're a prime example.
Such a good show.
What a show. And I was infatuated with some of the work that they did, but not only what they did, it was what they were doing it on. And I was just like, I always did metalwork and engineering and skill. That was always my go-to subject. And I always knew I was always going to be hands-on. So when I was watching this show, that's where I was like, them poems are kick ass. Like I need to one day eventually do something like that. That's what I aspired and wanted to do. And so much so, I think I was like a second or third year apprentice, it was a mid recession, absolute torture. You were nearly
Yeah.
working for free. And I emailed Rick Dale and his wife on a few different platforms saying, listen, I'd love, this is what I've made, like I've shown them what I'd made previous to that, like junior cert, or sorry, leaving cert stuff. And I was like, I'm an apprentice and I'd love to come and work for you. I'd nearly come over for work. I was basically offering myself for free because I just wanted to go over and see how they did, what they did. Now, obviously, got no reply. Never heard a thing. But it was that was where kind of got the seed in the head. So cut like 10 years later, qualified, left the plumbing game, and I ended up getting employed with a fuel management company who I'd always been intrigued to go and work for. And the who was now my boss, like I knew from the get go, this guy's a cool guy, and you're comfortable with him. He loved all the previous things that I'd made up to then, like because before working in that company, I was in Intel, so it's so much time off on shift. So that's where the making started. But the pump started when I started in fuel and technology, and when I got in the door, like it was all they were all brand new state of the art web based technology, really shiny things with LCD interfaces, and nothing that what we love,
Yeah.
But then I was in the place about a month or so, and they have a big mezzanine area, and there was just old pumps that they decommissioned in the past, and I seen one or two that I now know aren't actually. They're not a very special pump. There's a lot of them everywhere, but they're still an 80s or 90s pump, and with a bit of work, I was like, they're cool. So I said to Shane, the boss, I was like, "What's the story with the pumps up there?" And he was like, "No, sorry, we're going down to Hammond Lane." I
What's
was
down
like,
in Hammond Lane? Is that a breaker's yard?
"Yeah, yeah, scrapyard, yeah." So you go down, bring all your steel down there, or your copper, or your whatever metals, and yeah, pay for it, cash. And I was looking, I was like, "What about the two older looking pumps?" He was like, "Ah, sure, like there's loads of them everywhere." And I was like, "Can I have them?" And he was there. "Well, if you want." Like he was like, "What are you gonna do with them?" I was like, "Oh, I'll do something. I'll, I'll tasty them up." Like so, I'd already had this idea in my head from years ago, drawings, and I've had drawings of pumps, like like right here. Every pump I do, I always do a drawing. Like that's the Gabarco I'm on now. But back to that. I had ideas of what I wanted to do, teams and what way, and I basically started working on one of these, and they're a very bland looking pump. They've only got one interface, but it's the proper clock dial that turns,
Yeah.
and it's got a manual reset and stuff. So it's old enough that it could be, with a bit of work, it could really stand out and look cool. And went looking for that particular brand on the internet, and I seen there was no one that did that special except for a place over in the UK, Automotive Vintage Automotive, I think they're called. But they basically restore old pumps. And when I started seeing what they were doing, I was like, oh. And then I started seeing what they were selling them for. I was like,
Oh, the
oh,
crazy money. I think people don't realize how expensive a restored pump is. Like
yeah.
you can go for 10 G's easily, especially in this country because they're so hard to
100%.
find.
Yeah, and you know I know from seeing your pump, you sending your pictures, and some of the pumps that I have lined up to do, are like hen's teeth. You actually cannot get them anywhere. Like
And if
I
you
don't know
can
how
get
I
them, they're
managed.
ridiculously expensive. So I guess you got very, very lucky in that the guy didn't know what he had in a way
Well,
or had any ambition in working with them. But
yeah, well, do
if
you
you
know what?
talk to collectors, it's a different game altogether.
Yeah, and as I said, like he knew, like the guys that like Shane, he's in the game 40 years, like so they've seen all the pumps, they've decommissioned them, and a lot of them back in the day were just sent out for scrap. Some people seen something in them and kept the ones like say from the 50s and the 60s, even the early 70s ones. Some people were smart enough to kind of park them offside in a garage somewhere, or you know put a sheet over it and forget about it for 10 or 15 years. But for the most part, they've told me, and the lads, like the two boys I work with, Paul's in the game as well, like 20 years, and he was like, Jesus, I'd be showing him pictures of pumps, and he'd be going, yeah, we scrap many of them, and I'd be like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? And like it's blasphemy to me, like But that was just it. That's the way it was, like because it's that's their job, Like for anyone to go and see these on the side of the street now, you're kind of like, wow, they're nice, like especially when you see a good one.
Oh, like
But
I've always I'm very very similar to yourself. I was always watching MythBusters, American Restoration. Even now, I still watch a bunch of restoration videos, and I just thought, oh my god, this is the coolest stuff because even it
yeah,
kind of transcends into kind of some of the work that I'm doing. So like I'm like the firefighter stuff that I've done and the other kind
yeah,
of restoration work I've done. I think there's so much to be said, and I've said this on this podcast so many times. It's all about the story, and it's
oh yeah,
something that attaches value to it if you can, like, tell a story with it, like, this is 50 years old. It's
yeah,
like, how is that not the coolest thing you've ever seen? But, like, some people don't get it at all, and they're really not into it. Because when I got
yeah,
my pump, I'll tell you how I got my pump, actually. This is like, where did you get your first pump? I was sitting there in the middle of lockdown, I was sitting there on my computer in my little apartment, and I was looking around, and then I was like, "Do you know what's awesome? Petrol pumps." And I'd always wanted one. I've always wanted one of
yeah,
them and a Coke machine.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
uh,
getting started.
well, like, do you remember the conversation we had when you saw that Coke ice cream thing down in Port and you were like, "I'd need
That's
to
right.
have that," and I was like, "I'm way
Yeah,
ahead of you," but they're looking for
yeah,
crazy money for it. But anyway, so I was thinking, geez, I'd love one of those too, and I don't know what came into me, but I was just thinking about it, and I went on to adverts, and I just went, I wonder,
yeah,
and then it popped up, and it was the most beautiful pump. It's a Wayne 70 pump,
deadly.
used in the UK, and it pumps kerosene. And a
Yeah,
guy in Limerick was selling them, and I have never seen one in the wild. I've just never seen them. It seems like when Ireland decommissioned them and they kind of
yeah,
got rid of them, most of them went, as you said, to Hammond Lane and just went to the breakers. The only ones I found are coming over from the UK. And I went
yeah.
into my wife and I said, "Listen, I want to spend 1,500 quid and buy a petrol pump." And she kind of looked at me and she was like, "Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Like, you've always wanted one." And I was like, "Oh yeah, brilliant."
Yeah, yeah,
So I like rang up my uncle, and because I don't drive, and I was like
yeah.
rang up my uncle, and he's like this big flatbed, and I'm like, "Any chance you could drive me down to Limerick and we could buy a petrol pump?" And he's like this big 7 foot tall South African guy, and he was like,
Yeah, yeah,
"What?
yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. Let's go do that." And then like we just go on down to Limerick, and I went into middle of nowhere. And this guy go down this laneway, and then I get there, and the guy's there like, "Hi, how are you?" And then he brings me in the back of his house. And I was thinking, we're all in masks and everything, and we're all a bit scared.
Yeah,
I was thinking, Jesus, this is a bit sketch now. I'm in Limerick, and I go
yeah,
down
yeah.
this narrow thing, and the my uncle is there, and he's there like, this is all very strange. And we're walking
Huh?
down anyway, and then he opens up his shed, and oh my god, it was like one of those like oh moments. And
Oh,
all I could see, all down the left, all down the right, were restored hot rods. The guy
was
restored hot rods, and he just
was
had
this dude's name Liam? Was it?
yeah,
I know. Yeah,
yeah,
I
you
bet.
probably know him, but he had all these hot rods, and I was sitting there just losing my mind. And then I went in, and he's like, he just had a room full of pumps, and he's like, "Do you want this one? Do you want that one?" And I was kind of like, "Look, that's the one I like the look of. That's the one I think I can restore." And he was
Wow.
telling me his whole story. And it was just incredible. And the pump has seen way better days. It came from the UK. It's trash. The
Yeah,
globe is long gone. But like an
yeah.
original globe, you know the price of original globes. Like they're more expensive than the pumps if you can get
It's
them.
summer, isn't it? Yeah,
There's a guy up in Cavan. Is
yeah,
it Cavan? You know the
yeah.
guy up in
It is.
Cavan
Yeah,
in Blackline.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
he does
do. Yeah, I
love.
know.
What's his name? I don't remember. Is it? I don't know. I don't remember what his name is. Really, really nice chap. And he sold it to me anyway. Anyway, we loaded it up on the truck, and I brought it back to my grandparents' house. And
Nice.
do you want to bring up that image there? Because I want to show Stephen. This is my granddad right beside it, and he was
Ah,
like,
nice.
"Oh yeah, like isn't this great?" But we brought it back anyway. But this guy was taking casts of
Yeah,
petrol pumps,
class.
and then he was turning them into EV chargers.
Wow. Oh, deadly. Yeah,
Which is
yeah,
such
yeah,
a smart idea, and I was thinking, like, it's that Americana merging the old and the new, and it's
yeah.
unbelievable. Vicky, if you can pull up some of those pictures there of Stephen's pumps, and Stephen, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your pumps, because I'm absolutely blown away by your pumps, because the work you're putting into them is incredible. How many have you done now?
So far, I've three completed, and then I've two that are like probably 90%. I'm actually just waiting on decals, and then they're done as well. So I'll be five now when I have these complete. So, um, the first one I done, as I said, when Shane gave me that pump, I started working on it, and he seen no value in it. Like it was a very bland looking thing, but I thought with cutting windows into it and like maybe dollying it up, that it looked a lot nicer. So I started working away on it. I cut the windows display into it, had all the panels beaten out, primered, and then Shane was coming up and I'm like, "Geez, that's pretty cool." And he was like, what color are you going?" I was like, "Oh, I'm thinking Texco team or something like that." And he was like, "Would you do a pump for us, like for the front door, like for the foyer?" And I was like, "All right." I goes, "I'll make you a deal. For them two pumps, I'll do this pump for you." And he was like, "Yes, sorted." So I now had two identical Hocking 93 XAs. Very bland pump. They're like 70s, 80s pump, even into the 90s. OPW have them, the Fire Brigade had them, loads of like marinas and stuff like that. Waterways Ireland use them. So they are actually situated everywhere, but like generally these people just scrap them. But I started working on it, did Shane's one, and you'll see that that's the grey and orange one. And that was me first one that gave me the goo. That I was like, right, maybe I can do this. Like that turned out so well that my boss wanted it on display, and he was showing obviously all different work people, and people come in like for meetings and stuff. Like that's the first thing they see, and it's a talking point. Like so, it's a great thing to have a talking point. And then Shane's always courtesy and turn around, like he'll introduce me. Anyone that asks about it, he'll bring them even into the workshop and be like, "Yeah, Stephen, the lads want to ask you about the pump and all." Just have a general chat about it. And they're like, most people are just like me and you. They see it and they go, "That's really cool." You go over, you touch it, and you look at it, and like, I want one of them, or.
But they're just swish. Like
Yeah,
I feel like anytime I've ever seen one, or I've seen an old Coke machine, or I've seen one of those old vending machines restored, I don't know, it
yeah,
just triggers. I don't know. Maybe there's something in it where you're just a man of a certain age and you just look at stuff like that and you're like, yes, I just need
yeah.
that in my life. And they're
That's
just
not,
unbelievably, and they're a great talking point. Like you put that
that's it.
anywhere, people are going to be like, tell me everything about this.
And you know yourself when you've built something, when you've got to the end, when you've took your time, like it might have taken a lot more time than you expected, but when you get to the end and you're finally standing back and not judging any of it or kind of going, I should have done that. When you've gave it enough time where you stand back and go, I don't think there's anything else I can do with that to make it look any cooler, because any more would be over the top as well. Um, and that definitely gave me the drive to do the next one. So we started straight away on the next panel, started cutting the windows into it. Exact same model pump. I had two extra ones of them, so started doing that again. And this time I was starting to post. I'd obviously posted up pictures of Shane's Field Technology one. Then I was posting up like videos and snippets and stuff on Instagram and Facebook of me working on another one. And a guy who I've done a few lights for his house before, actually a good friend of mine, Noel, he got in touch with me. He actually does me decals. Really nice dude. He got on to me. He was like, so, what's the story with that water pump you're working on? And I was like, no story. I'm just doing it. Like, I'm just doing it because I want to do it. Like, there's never a selling point around. I just ask someone to start somewhere, because generally I'd like to keep them all, but unfortunately we
It's
can't.
a curse as well.
Yeah, so like it's nice to be able to give it to a close friend, because I can go up and like go and see it like all the time as well. So
You're
yeah,
such a
no,
maker. You're such a
someone to put
maker.
it.
It's like, oh, I want to go visit my pumps.
Yeah,
But I
exactly. And it is.
understand. Like other people mightn't understand. I completely get it. Where you go up and you're like, "Are you treating it okay? How are
Yeah,
you?"
exactly. Like there was one time I went up, so Noel turned around to me, he was like, "Oh, like, can I take dibs on that?" And I was like, "Well, man," I was like, "What do you think?" And he was like, "Yeah, we need to come up with me and have a chat." So I said I was wanted to do a Texco team, and had this all drawn out. It looked really cool. I'll show you the drawing. And when I sent my note, he was like, "Bear with me." He was like, I'm taking it completely off the route you were talking about. But what about Guinness?" And I was like, "Guinness." I was like, "Gee, no." I was like, "That's all right,
Is
cool."
that a
Right,
picture?
well,
That's a picture of it there up on the screen. Like
yeah,
it actually looks phenomenal.
yeah, that was the very first one, and that went viral. Like the minute I released them pictures, like there was people from the States, there was people from Diageo now getting on to me, like really, really great feedback. And that's what also drives you to do these things again and again, and it feeds your addiction, if you like, because people, all the nice words from all the people, like strangers especially, you expect it from friends and family. But when a complete random stranger sending you like a big synopsis of going, man, it's so amazing. It's amazing. And I don't know how to take good compliments like that. I'm kind of like, oh, thank you, you know, go back under me rock. Whereas, like, it is a really nice feeling. And
There's
the
a
get,
great sense of that where you can someone is sitting there and you don't know them and they don't owe you they don't owe you anything, and you know that their compliment is actually genuine because
oh,
you can't come up with a value, but oh, maybe he's only messing me around. Like no,
yeah,
someone's gone out of their way to tell you that you're great, and like
yeah,
that's so powerful, and you're just like, oh, thank you so much.
that's it. And like that Guinness pump went out there. That was not like that's Noel's went up into his little home bar that he made. We went up and we sent on the video of us pouring the very first point out of it. Like we we clashed heads so many times. Well, not clashed heads. Like, I mean, we came together so many times, with different ideas. And Noel was so laid back. He was just like, "Listen, Steve, you you just do what is in your head." He was like, I gave you an idea, and I'm just gonna let you roll with it. So he basically left me for like 9 months, and my mind just went nuts, and I was just like, do this, do this. So I ended up with that original one. I cut a cabinet door into it, fitted a cabinet into it. The idea was to originally put maybe like a wine cooler or something into it, but I couldn't find anything small enough to fit within the dimensions of the frame. So I just kind of had to settle with like a wooden cabinet, which I put LED lighting into it and a glass shelf into it. And it just actually, just more or less to put memorabilia and stuff. Because
Yeah.
if he's going to have that, it's a collector piece. And sure, why not put some of his Guinness and other collectibles in the cabinet itself? And not to mention it's a cabinet, and it also poured points out the top of it. Instead of having a globe, we went with the Guinness head, and the single tap pours from the side, but the double tap pours from the back. Now I didn't know that at the time. If I hadn't known that, I would have said get the one that pours from the back, so you could actually have this thing built into your bar, like you have your bar built around it. But so you had to pour it at the side, but it was still seriously hella cool, like, you know.
It's it like I was looking at the pictures, and that's how me and you got talking, because I saw them and I was like, gotta get this. This was before we even had the podcast. I was chatting to you and we were just like, that is unbelievable. Because there's not
Yeah,
that many people in Ireland that are really on the kind of the pump scene, as I'd say.
yeah,
There's myself, and I haven't even started restoring my pump. My pump is sitting in my grandparents' garage because
yeah.
I just haven't had the time and I haven't had the space to start restoring it. And like my
Space
plan
is
for
big
that
thing.
is I want to restore it nice, probably do a shell theme, and then I
I
want to rip out the insides and then turn it into a kind of temp controlled whiskey rack, so that when you so that
uh
because it's got the full length door, so then you'll
yeah,
open it up,
yeah,
pull it out, and then it'll just be antique whiskeys all the way up.
yeah.
And then obviously you'll just keep
Awesome.
the clickers. Hopefully, I don't know even the Mechatronics on that. Do you know? There's probably someone who restores them or does work on them, because they're
Um,
apparently a nightmare to work on.
on the underside of them, like most of them, they're basically a meter, and it'll have uh, it'll be turned. So there should be a knob on the underside of it. I'm explaining this absolutely back to front, but it's basically the analogs, and it gets turned by the meter, should I say? And so from the underside of it, you should be able to turn. There might be a little spigot or something sticking out.
Oh yeah,
And if when you turn that, you should start seeing numbers dialing around. I generally, if it's one that I don't know them as well, because we don't work on them. We work on all state of the art, kind of web based, all digital now. But when I come across these, like when you see some of the gears and mechanisms in them, like so you have a Wayne 70, you have a Wayne 30 as well, which is like the thing that might be a gen or two below, like older than yours.
that's old school.
I know, and when you look at some of the mechanisms inside, it's just like fascinating. Now, that was the only thing that was in that. All the rest of the guts have been stripped out because it was used for promotion and stuff in a bar.
And
But
tell me, have you been picking pumps, or have you just been getting them through work?
no, right. So yeah, the two pumps, the two first pumps was there were two exact 93 talking 93 XAs. Got them from the job. And then after that, then it was just like yourself, you'd be on adverts, all the different type of selling sites. And I was coming across a few that were going for extortion. And I haven't been in the game. I kind of have an idea of what they should be worth unrestored, especially badly conditioned ones.
Yeah,
And some people were looking for like say 1,500 quid for a thing that basically more or less 90% probably had to be refabricated. All the panels were so shot that you'd actually just have to get a new panel made. And I explained it to you, man. I just goes, listen, I'm not, I think they're kill pump. I'm not actually going to buy this one. I'm just letting you know that I don't think many people are going to buy for the condition that it's in. I was like, I work in the industry itself, and I was like, I think you might be just shooting it up a bit high, but wish you the best of luck and stuff.
it was
And
a good
then
reaction, bad reaction.
Um, yeah, because see, like, I suppose there is some people are coming, getting their hands on some of these pumps, and they're totally over evaluating them, especially when restored, because like they have to understand, like when the likes of myself or yourself take them, like the hours that goes into some of them. Like you're
And the
talking like the
money.
first game, money as well, 100%. And you're talking down to everything from whether it be using your weld machine, electricity, going through cutting discs, buying perspex to replace the windows, globes, which cost probably what the pump value was when you bought it as well, if you get an original.
But that's sorry, that's something that people really don't get, how expensive the globes are. Because I was trying to explain this to my wife. I
Um,
was like, I'm probably going to get a reproduction globe, and she's like,
yeah,
why would you get a reproduction globe? Would you not just do it properly, Nathan? And like she was, it made it sound like I was like cheaping out on it, and I was like,
yeah,
okay. And then we went up to Blackline, and we went up to the guy the guy who sells all them. I brought her
yeah,
in, and I was like, how much is it for a shell one? And he was like, about 2 grand, and I was just like, like, and then it was just kind of like, what happens if it breaks? It might break. And I was just
yeah.
like, no, 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 no.
It's genuinely not worth it. Like, and I'd literally, I'm the same as you. I found people over in the UK mostly. Then I found Liam in Limerick as well. He managed because he was doing the EV conversions, and he was also doing beautiful replicas.
Yeah,
Um, and
he does
that's
about
where
fiberglass.
he, yeah, I know. Well, he actually did. There were stainless steel ones that he was getting, like
Oh,
stainless steel molds, getting them pressed, and they just look kick ass. And he had one done for like loads. He had BP, Shell, Texaco, Caltel. He had an array of them just lined up, all different color schemes, all of these reproduction globes on them. And I got onto him and said, listen, I just showed him a few of the pictures of the stuff that I was doing. I was like, because it's always good to have contacts like him, because he's into his vintage, he's into his automobilia. So knowing a dude like that as well is indispensable, because the people that he may know, he'll be able to point you in the right direction. And it was actually Liam himself, who you dealt with as well, that was able to kind of put me in the direction of getting reproduction globes that
which are a
are
fraction of the
absolute.
cost. And
Oh,
they're
easily
beautiful.
now.
They're
Yeah, they're
beautiful.
beautiful. Like, still a few hundred quid. Like, you're still looking at like 200 quid, probably
Oh, but 200 quid
more.
versus 2 grand, like,
Yeah.
do you
And
know?
as you said, like the 2 grand one is probably could be 50 to 60 years old, probably more, and made of like silk glass or milk glass. So like, Jesus, God forbid you put it in a box wrapped up in everything, you bring it home, and then the thing's just cracked from you going over a pothole or something, and then there you go. What do you do? Get the silk, get the gorilla glue out there,
But like, but there are some people in the community, and as I said, I don't know many people in the Irish community. I know about 4 or 5. Apparently, apparently talking to the guy in Blackline. His name escapes me. If he's watching
Yeah,
this, he's probably very annoyed. A lovely, lovely guy. He was saying that there is an awful lot of collectors. There's not an
yeah,
awful lot of restorers, and an awful lot of them come in from the UK. And I'd well
yeah,
believe it, because I just haven't seen many people in the maker community really get involved in pumps.
yeah,
Which is really sad, because it's such a that kind of Americana industrial thing.
yeah.
It's they're gorgeous, but they're just so hard to find. Like, you just cannot find them.
Yeah, like I've the two other ones that I do have. I have three actually. Sorry. So I have the Wayne 30, the real like 7 foot tall one.
Beautiful.
I have the Beckmeter M50. Like, there's the badge off it right there. Like, even that's steel, and I only have one of them badges, and there's a place over in the UK that are going to laser cut me another steel one, and they actually thanked me for giving them the idea, because they do like old school automotive decals, and
Awesome.
I basically sent them a list of stuff, and I was like, I'm doing 3 restorations, I need all these decals, and it was all the cool stuff, um, like all the little stickers that would have been on them back in the day when they were first manufactured. So it's a great thing to find a company that actually make that stuff for you, because trying to go to a printer and showing them pictures, right? I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that, but I want it that size, and then giving them all the measurements. Like, God love them. I've confused the life out of so many printers. Like, oh, I was totally gone off track there. What was I even saying?
Yeah, you were talking about getting the stuff laser cut.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, the different pumps. Yeah. So the Wayne third. Oh, sorry. And then I have a Gilbarco. That's the third one.
Which?
the Gilbarco. I forget, it's a CP.
Is
I
it an
forget the
English
name of
pump or an American?
it's I don't know where Gilbarco are from. I think the brand Gilbarco is American. I'm not totally sure the background, but the pump that I got and that I have, when you seen it when I first got it, I got it off Kildare Fire Station. I was in there servicing their newer
You were
fuel
telling
management
me this.
system. Yeah, and there's this thing sitting there rusting away beside it, and like one of these, I'm meant to be concentrating what I'm doing in the job, but I'm kind of like, oh, you got to like one eye's on what I'm looking at and what I'm doing, and the other eye is kind of creeping over there looking at that. So, you know, I got the job done, got that pump going, and the station officer came out, and absolute gentleman, man. And same thing, I was like, "How are you doing, Sean? Check out some of the things that I've built here." I was like, "Any plans for that old pump?" And he was like, "Jeez, no, Stephen." He was like, "If you," he goes, "Listen, you can on my word you can have it, but he goes, there's four different officers over or there's three different officers or four officers over four shifts."
Yeah.
So he goes, "Leave it with me, and I'll say it to the four other lads. And if everyone gives a thumbs up," he was like, "as long as you decommission it safely," he was like, "I don't want any trip hazards or any electrical hazards or anything like that." And I was like, "Say no more." I goes, "That's what we do." So I was
Well,
like,
you're a
"You just give me the
professional.
thumbs
You'd
up."
have no problem doing that.
That's it. It was part of our game. So I had said it to my boss as well. Like, "Oh, Jesus, the lads in Kildare Fire Station said when we be able to decommission their old pump and have it." And Shane was like, "Oh, well, yeah, well, sure. If we land out there on a service call, sure, then you could kill two birds with one stone." And I was like, "Oh, grand." So forgot all about it. Left it be with your man. Forgot all about it. And then a few weeks later, I get a random text from a number on WhatsApp, and he was like, "How you doing? Such and such from Kildare Fire Station. Your all systems go to pull that pump out." And I was there. I couldn't contain myself. I was just like, "When's our next service call out there? When's our next service call out there? Send me." So myself and Sid, one of the lads, we went out. We got a service call. We fixed our pump, got it going, and then went straight away. Pulled, disconnected electronics, made them safe. Then I'd already prefabricated. I measured up the plinth that the pump was sitting on. I prefabricated a plate. And I was just like, doo, doo, doo. I was like, perfect. And
Job
that's
done.
that's a thing. Yeah, that's what you'll see in the pictures. Like that's where it was, and that's just where what the way we left it. And I'm now nearly finished that. Just waiting for decals. All the holes were all bondoed. I was going to try and repair them metalwork wise and actually cut strips of metal out and tack it and repair it that way, but that would have just been a nightmare job. So I ended up just ISO panning it because I didn't keep the internals or anything. It's
Yeah.
purpose mainly just for display, but it looks really cool because when you get to the stage I'm at now, having putting in the display windows, and these are actually the back boxes for the two pumps that I'm doing now. Because when you cut the windows in them, I actually put an inlay and you put the decals. So like that's gonna say regular in there, and like that's only primer at the moment. But it's gonna have regular across there. Then I'll have an LED strip there, and same with the dial face window. There'll be an LED strip there. So and it'll look all pretty and lit up. So it's pretty fun to get to this stage of a build because this is where it looks really nice and you start kind of getting giddy with it. You're like,
Yeah.
you know, everything's polished up, everything's looking nice, and as usual, the one thing that holds me back is getting the decals because generally someone is doing me a favor doing them, but like I'm trying to get these over the line, so I'd be like texting every few days, any chance on them decals? If you can't do them, just let me know. It's no problem, and then
You get
move
to
on to
know.
the next person.
Yeah.
So
Jesus.
yeah, that's the mad rush that happens generally with them.
Tell me now. Do you go picking often? So, like, I guess for the uninitiated, picking is essentially where you're going out to either scrap yards or antique places or really the random parts of the earth, and you're basically looking for stuff to restore. Would you ever think you're going to move away from the pumps, or you think you're just super focused on the pumps?
Well, do you know the pumps is it's convenient now because obviously my workplace allow me to use their facility, like their workshop, so I have the space to not only store these pumps but to take them apart, have all the parts in different boxes and labeled and stuff. Like if you were to try and do it in this workshop, like most of us, like this is a 10 by 10 or 3 meter by 3 meter workshop. It's good for doing little things like that. You can fold up bits of metal, and you can make little lamps and stuff like that. But like for anything big, straight away you get claustrophobic. If I was to carry one of them pumps in here,
Yeah.
you wouldn't swing a cat in the room,
Yeah.
So it's good to have that space. So I do understand why there is a lot of makers that can't or don't invest in doing it because maybe they just won't get the time of day to get near it. Whereas I'm actually very fortunate to be able to do all that, and then not only that, spray paint them. That's a huge thing. Like
Do you
I
have a spray
usually
booth?
do. No, not in the job, but I kind of do it halfway in between the big roller shutter door, so I try not to get like probably unprofessional. If there's a spray painter listening to me there, I am a plumber. So and it's one thing, like in all the stuff I've built, which is a serious array of different things, spray painting was always one that I dreaded. So when I was doing the pumps, the spray painting was always going to be the make or break, because the metalwork end and the fabricating and all that stuff, and the mechanical end, that was always going to be fine. I could do that with the eyes closed. But spray painting, there's a finesse. It's an art in itself. Like, and me being OCD and like to try and get things as perfect as I can within my limits, spray painting just never went my way. Like I used to spray paint old drum kits and stuff and be all bubbling and cracked, and just never went well. So I always had that fear in me.
I'm really glad to hear it. Like, it's such a cool thing to be part of. Like, I guess what would you say to makers out there who are listening, to get involved in this? Now, maybe not just in the petrol pump angle, but definitely if we could get more people involved in restoring pumps and old machines, it would be incredible. Like, I know myself, I have a massive pump and I just do not have the space to work on it. Like, I
Yeah,
bought it and I emptied it out and I put it into storage, and I kind of looked
yeah,
at it and I knew when I bought it, I was like, I am not going to touch this for years. But
yeah,
when am I going to find this pump again? So when I saw it and I got it and I just bought it and I put it into storage, and I knew that to work on this, I need a lot of space and I need a lot of equipment. And I knew like it would be later in life that I could actually do what I wanted to do. But people thought I
yeah,
was mad. I'm sure
yeah,
you found this. Like, we
yeah.
had a bunch of people over to the house, and someone turned to my wife and they were like, "Well, why did you let him get that?"
Uh,
And like she was like, "What do you mean
I
I
know.
didn't let why would I let him get it? He's a grown man who paid for it himself and he's really good at, that's what he's into. Like who the hell are you? Like God
Yeah,
help her husband." But like some people are like really like that, and so many people have said to me like, "Why would you buy something like that?" But
yeah.
I know in myself that I know what it'll look like all restored. I know what it'll
That's
look
the
like when it's
difference.
all put in, and I
Yeah,
know that they're gonna be sitting there well jealous and well
yeah,
going,
yeah,
"That's the coolest thing I've ever seen." Because when you even have like it has the old kind of, the hose and
ah,
the little
yeah,
faucet and all the rest of it, and it's all the
yeah.
original stuff, and you're just like you just
Can't
I
beat
don't
it.
know, like, maybe it's just in me, but there's just nothing cooler than that. But to go back to my point, what advice would you give to people who kinda wanna get started in this?
Um, Start off slow, and like upcycling is always the best way to go as well. With starting to make anything, because like you're cutting your cost on materials. The price of the materials now is absolutely abysmal. So like I started out with pallets. Most people, there's a lot of people out there that hate working with pallets or they'll diss them. But at the end of the day, it's free timber and it's easy to kind of learn from your mistakes with it. And you can build still cool stuff. Like I've built a lot of stuff with pallets. So like it's always good to get started there. You know, don't get frustrated. Have a plan. Always have a plan. I always have a drawing, and for everything I've ever built, I always had a drawing. Like even if it was something basic, even when I did the thing on RTE, I had one drawing on my whiteboard which was behind us, literally a rough drawing. And for the 10-day build, I'd kind of reference myself to that every day. And it doesn't have to be anything. Like it could be something simple with a few measurements. That way it's just a plan of action to follow consistently, so you're not losing yourself during a project and kind of not knowing where you're at. Number everything if you have multiple bits in it. Just simplify it, make it easy for yourself, because like things, when you simplify builds, when they come together, it's not only satisfying, but it's a relief.
Yeah.
Like you know yourself when you're doing dioramas and models, like especially the finesse you have to have with such small parts. You know, like stuff can be make or break. So I think patience is always the best thing with them. But I
That's my
suggest,
that's my best tool.
nice.
Tiny tweezers. And when I was growing up and I started model making, I thought, oh, tweezers, what a loser. And now I'm a little bit older and my eyes aren't what they used to be. I'm just kind of like, tweezers are
Oh,
life.
don't I know? Sure, where is my lamp? I made like I recently done my fiance's engagement ring
You
out
said
two
this,
brass.
but tell us more about that.
Yeah, I did it out two brass. Like, yeah, that's another story in itself. How long have we got?
Oh, we have a little bit. We can run a bit longer.
Right. Yeah, so obviously a few years ago, I wanted to ask her to marry me, and I went around a few jewelry shops, and me being, I just nothing made sense. I was looking at this ring and this ring; they both looked the exact same. This was like 1,000 more than this one, and he's trying to lure me in and show me all this, and I'm looking at him kind of like nothing feel. There's no feeling there for me. So
Yeah.
me being me, straight onto YouTube. Just to see for the crack, was there anyone that made rings? Now, obviously, I know there's lots of makers and jewelers and stuff out there that make all sorts of beautiful stuff. But I wanted to make a gold ring, a diamond ring, essentially, without two brass nuts. So, did a YouTube job, found this, I think he's a Spanish guy, and he's got a beautiful video, nice music and all behind it, but it's like a half an hour long, and it doesn't cut on any detail. And I watched it and I watched it and I watched it. Then I just couldn't stop watching it. And I was just like, that could be done. And then a bit me was down to going, he's all the professional jewelry equipment, everything from all the really finesse Dremels and, like every bit of his equipment was all jewelry. But in my head, I was like, a few needle foils, I've loads of different grades of sandpaper, I've a bench grinder there and like a polishing machines. I was like,
Bodge it together.
you know, so we found a place over on the south side that sold actual brass nuts. So I bought two of one size and two of another size, and then I also got two corresponding dome nuts. So I got two hex nuts and two dome nuts. That's what he used, and I got two extras just in case I made a mess of the first attempt. But it took 2 years. Literally just the hands, me Ferox, which is an Aldi Dremel thing, is a beast. Used that. I think I went through about, I don't know, about 25 different grades of sandpaper, right down to like, I don't know, it was like like a 1,000 grit, like where it was more or less paper. And I sit there wet sanding it by hand, just sitting out here like Sharpie going, I wonder what she thought I was doing out here, because I'd be coming out here and I'd be just gone for ages, and I come back in, my hands be black, before I washing them. But at the start, I'd stole one of her rings, and so one that I knew she was wearing, and it wasn't exact finger, but close enough. And I just stole that and just never said that. And I had that ring for about 2 years, and about a week or two before I proposed, I kind of placed it there on the shelf. Thank God she didn't ask me about it, because I would have probably and yeah, I got a bit of help. I got it down to the part where it looked like a beautiful ring with a crown, and then the next part was getting a diamond and actually brazing the crown and the band together. And I just hadn't got the sack for it. I really just I had gone so far. It took so long to get that, and I was so happy with the result for the tools that I had. Like, I couldn't believe I'd got as far as the dude in the video, and I was like, holy crap. And then I just scouted about, asked jewelers. Martin Gear jewelers were fascinated. They were so busy, but they around Christmas, that they couldn't help me set the stone and all that malarkey. So I was in my credit union one day, and the girl behind the counter, who was lovely, I know her, I always say hello. She had recently got engaged. I overheard it, and I was up next in line. I was like, "Ah, Jesus, congrats! I heard you got engaged." And she's like, "Oh yeah, you showed me the ring." I was like, "Ah, class." And I was like, "I'm working on something myself." And she's like, "What's it mean?" I was like, "I'm actually making one." Like, and she was like, "You're fucking joking." I was like, "You're joking." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And she was like, "That's amazing." And she's like, "How far?" And I showed her a few pictures, and she was like, "Wow." Because when I say I'm making a ring out of two brass nuts, the general people look you get is the raised eyebrow and kind of okay, But when I showed her, she was like, "Whoa!" And she was like, "So what's the story?" And I was like, "No, I don't know anyone that can braise these two bits together and set a stone into it." And she's like, "Oh, sure, my dad, Joe, is a jeweler on the side. Like that's his passion, his love is on the side." I was like, "No way." She's like, "Yeah, Joe, like." And it turns out Joe was the guy who used to always he'd he'd let you get the loan in the credit union. Like he was actually one of the head guys in the committee. So I'd met him loads of times. I never knew they were family. So literally by pure chance, standing in the credit union, I managed to come across Joe and had a meeting with him, showed him, and for a jeweler, he sat back and he was just like, "This thing, yeah." He was like, he shook me hand and he was like, "Fair play, son." And I was there, listen, don't be bigging it up. Can it be done? And he sat it down into it, and the collet sat down into it. It actually rounded off even where the collet sat down into the band itself. And he was just like, "You even did that?" He was like, "Jewelers don't even do that." He was like, "Yeah, this can be done, no problem." And I was there, and he was like, "What do you want to put in it?" I was like, "Put something nice in it." I want something really nice in it. But I goes, "Don't go over the top, cause don't forget it is two brass things that I made. So I am very conscious of putting a ridiculous stone in something that could pop off, on a walk in the hills or something. So I was like, just play caution to the wind. But I was like, don't be just putting a piece of crap in it, like." And he was like, "When do you need it?" And I was like, "Whenever you have it. Whenever you're done, that's when I need it." Like I was, I'm just giving it to you. Take it. And whenever I hear from you, that's whenever it be a year or whatever. And he was like, "I know, we'll have it done in a few weeks." And I was there, Jesus, this is all gonna happen, we've waited so long. So yeah, sure enough, 2 weeks later, it gives me a shout, and he just sends me a video of it in his hand, everything all set, polished up. He got it. We talked about getting it plated because he was saying that the brass itself might mark our finger. So I said, "Yeah, shit, if we can get it plated, happy days." So he brought it into his guys in town. They were fascinated with it as well. They gold plated 18 carat, and he set the stone in it. And yeah, then Paddy's Day this year, I randomly asked the question while she was putting Charlie's wellies on him. I was like, "Yeah, mention that." But yeah, really nice, no, a really special thing to do. It's definitely the most special thing I've ever made. Um, the toughest thing I've made because there was so many times it could have gone
Steve,
wrong.
can I just say, if she didn't say yes, I would have after hearing that story. That was
Yeah, yeah,
cracking going. Like, actually, can we just throw up a picture of that, Vicky? Can you just throw up the picture? I think you set one on. Like, look at that. Like, I I actually am blown away by it. Like, I'm actually blown away by it. And like, you like handmade all of that.
yeah. Literally, I'll actually show you. Bear with me 2 seconds. I'll grab the other two nuts that I didn't have to use in the end.
Yeah,
I still have them. I
you can
can't
do a
actually
cool
kept them.
cut.
Yeah, well, I said it to her. Well, yeah, cheesy. I was like, "I'm absolutely nuts about you," and
Oh,
I kept on winding her up. I kept on winding. Yeah, I know. Here we go with the puns. I kept on winding her up, saying for weeks prior to it, because I knew Joe had this, and
yeah.
it was all systems go. So I kept on saying to her, "I know something you don't know," and she kept on thinking one of our friends is pregnant, because everyone's getting married and getting pregnant. So she was hook, line, and sinker for that. So I just kept on randomly throwing it out there, and then we went away on Paddy's Day to Westport, and we had a little cabin down there. And I said to her, like when I was ready, when I finally got the courage, I was like, "Remember I said I know something you don't know? Well, I do. I was working on something." And I was like, I made you something." And then I showed her the two brass nuts, and I goes, "I'm nuts about you." I think I said something stupid like that. And I was like, "These are mine though." I was like, "I done something with yours," and then I showed her what I done with the other two nuts, and you might want to beep for this one, but she basically told me to F off. She was like, "Would you beep off?" And I was just like, "Yeah." And she was like, "You did?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, obviously, yeah, and delighted. And both of us welling up with tears and happiness. And I was just delighted. Playing got over the line. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, the rest is history now. So yeah, I'll get the other 2 months just
Go
to
go
show you
go go
some
go go.
lessons.
Show us show us show us.
We're still happy days.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I can get it up to the camera. So that's what I bought. I bought 2 of each. More so if I made a mess of it, that
You could have
I could
another
go
crack at
again.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then after that, then I was just probably gonna have to bite the bullet and get a jeweler to do something. So that was what I started with, and then that is what I ended with.
Did you just go in there and take it off your wife's finger?
Nah, she had off. She was washing the dishes.
I tell you, you did
I
some
don't mean
job
to
on
say
them.
that sounds terribly like she's not. That's not a cliche thing. That she just so happened to be doing the
You just
dishes.
pump the brakes there, my friend. Pump the brakes.
Yeah, yeah. She just so happened. So yeah, and you probably noticed that it is a little like in comparison to the pictures when it was first done, it's gone a bit worn for obvious reasons. She's been
Yeah.
wearing it, but the I don't know whether it's her reaction with it, with the oils in her skin, but she told me she has had reactions with precious metals like gold and platinum and stuff. So she is getting a slight bit of a mark on her ring, on the inside of where she wears the ring, and it's it's not too bad. Like I asked the jewelers and they said, "Oh yeah, that can happen. Like you can just have a reaction to any sort of
Yeah.
metal there." Are you saying the ring? I said something about a ring there a minute ago.
I got the same. I got mine out of brass, not brass, copper. I got a
Ah,
copper
nice,
ring, and
nice.
like turquoise, but it like it went really. It started messing with my hand big time. It's gotten better, like, but the
Yeah,
first like 6 months of wearing it, it used to turn my finger like green, and I was thinking
yeah.
like, oh my god, have I been ripped off on this copper ring? But apparently, like, it's quite common. Like, you shouldn't wear things made out of copper. Apparently,
Yeah, at the end of the day, it is that, and like these different metals, including the precious metals, gold, platinum, whatever it may be, they can mark your hand as well. Like, because everyone's skin is different and reacts
yeah,
different. Like you're putting a foreign object onto your skin absorbs whatever it's around it. Like, so I was lucky enough in the sense that she was getting a slight black mark around where the ring was, and I've noticed that some of the plating has kind of worn off. So I could get it replayed. I was gonna try and polish it up back to the brass polish that I had it at because I had it really nice looking, but um it take away the actual the yellow
and it'll
gold look.
dull much quicker. It'll dull very
Exactly,
quick.
yeah. So I it's done. It still looks cool as hell, and she still loves it, and it's a great talking point as well. So I'm just delighted she loves it, and it's still amazed that I managed to do it. I actually emailed the dude on YouTube, who would give me zero information, probably because he's so busy. Like he's a big,
Yeah,
really big YouTuber. So no wonder I'm probably just a fly in many of his emails there. But I just wanted to show him that like his video is the reason why I was able to get that done. Because I watched that video, I'd say 100 plus times, and it's a half an hour long. I mean, easily. I just sit there over and over, and I cut back to certain bits and go. Like when I knew how to do certain sections, I wouldn't watch that part. I go skip straight to like
yeah.
10 minutes in or 12 minutes in. I'd be like, right, and I just keep watching that segment, and then when I kind of had it all pieced together in my head, then I was just like, well, let's buy these nuts and give it a go. Like the worst thing that can happen is I'm making absolute hames of it, and I go to a jeweler with my tail between my legs. But yeah, it worked out in the end, so I'm really happy. Yeah,
It's actually phenomenal. Like, I'm really, really impressed by that. Like, it's such a personal thing to turn making into something that like you're gonna see on your wife's hand for as long as she'll have
yeah.
you. Do you know that kind of way?
And and this is it. Like, and the thing, there was obviously things playing in the back of my head going, "Am I a miserable fecker? Like, should I be like?" That's what I was thinking. Are other people going to think that miserable
Oh,
fecker?
that's true though. Some people would think that.
They
Like, oh,
would,
you
yeah, and
cheaped out. And it's like,
yeah.
listen, I tell you this now and I tell you no more. I knew a guy, right? This was years ago.
Hmm.
And I made him I did a bit of leather work, and I made these kind of leather covers for
Ah,
knives.
yeah,
So I went off and I
that's
got him
a bit of a
custom
lot.
knives, because he was into his cooking, and I got him like leather sheaths. I made the leather sheaths and stuff, and I put his name on it, and I was trying to get him a full knife set.
Whopper.
And one day, I think we got into a tiff or something, and he turned around and he said, "Oh, that's not very personal. You just did that to show off." And I was like, how could you get more personal than
That's
custom
fun.
made knives, custom made leather sheets because you're really into cooking? And I'll never forget that for as long as I live, that some people are just morons. And you're just like, you just can't win with some people.
Yeah, and this is it. Like one thing I did notice as well, being like taking criticism. I've been fortunate enough to not have too many people like outs me the stuff that I've done. But like obviously when I did the TV show, like you're gonna have people. Oh yeah, you said you did that, and you did. Well, you should have done it that way, and it's just kind of like, hold on, mate. You do that. You pull this idea out of your backside in like 10 minutes, and then put the application in, because that's where that came from. Like that, I'll actually show you as well, because it's opened up and I have it here right here beside me. So it'll work out for you. But the idea of coming up for this barbecue was completely random on a Monday morning before I was going out. Sorry, guys. Before I was going out for work. And I had an idea of doing a beer keg
Oh, wow.
barbecue. So yeah, I had an idea of doing a beer keg barbecue and kind of an upcycled cooler box. And they were two projects that I had in mind that I wanted to do. So when I was putting in the application for this show, like I did filled out all the forms, got so far down, did little interview videos, and then the question was like, "What are you building?" I was there going, "What am I building?" And then I'm sitting there on the spot going, I never even thought that far. Like I had like a day to fill in the application before I closed, literally a day. And I said, right, in the back of my head, I was like, I'll combine them two things together and just put them in a little shed. And kind of drill it out there in the spot, a rough thing, and explained it in a video. And then 2 days later, the producer of the show was like, can you actually make this in 10 days? And I was like, I don't know. We'll find out.
Give it a go. We'll give it
So,
a go.
yeah,
And
so
that
yeah,
looks unreal. Does it
the
cook
big
good
open
meat?
up. Oh yeah, man, it's awesome. Really is. So someone's like, oh, Diageo's gonna come looking for their thing, but this was at the side of a road, so they should have came and claimed that instead of causing an accident. So I actually saved someone from an accident. Yeah, basically chopped it in half. That's a broom handle. Um, put a gauge on it. Chopped it in half. Put some grating and stuff into it. It's got two different gratings, one for the coals and then one for the
Yeah.
meat. It's all stainless steel as well. A friend of mine, a fabricator, just came down with like loads of grid stainless steel. I was like, perfect. I can cook steel. I can cook meat on that. And then the cooler box was a fridge freezer compartment. So I chopped the freezer compartment off a fridge freezer and
It's obviously all
basically,
insulated and everything. Oh, that's
yeah, it's
perfect.
all insulated. Yeah, so there's the insulation there. So and then yeah, fill it up with ice. Now, the one thing that I wasn't allowed to do on the show, which would have been an absolute deal breaker, because the whole point of me doing this as well, it's 100% upcycled, like everything, scaffolding planks, pallets, beer kegs, fridges, you name it, perspex.
Yeah.
Um, but the one thing they wouldn't let me do was anything plumbing related. And because if it was part of your trade, it was seen as a disadvantage in the competition. So my idea, I wanted to put a drain off in the underside of that cooler box, because when you fill that full of ice, sure after you're just stuck with stagnant water there.
Yeah, which is
So
not great.
yeah, so I said to the producer of the show, I was like, Paul, can I please put a drain off in this? Sorry. And he was like, Steve, he was like, you can't put anything plumbing related. He goes, I see exactly where you're coming from, because what I wanted to do was to be able to reuse the water, the ice, melted ice water. You could put it into your watering can and water your flowers with it.
Smart.
So, yeah, a completely recyclable unit, you know. So, but he killed me on that idea. So, I got to,
Listen.
I'll probably put that on it. I'm just too lazy. I should have done it already, but I haven't.
Right. Listen, Steve, give us your final thoughts. Reconnect your camera there. I want to hear your
Yep.
final thoughts of what you want to say to the makers that are listening, because you've shown us incredible pumps that you're working on that are really, really inspirational. I'm going to have to start cracking into my pump. You've shown us incredible jewelry, which I think every woman who's listening to this thinks you're, Casanova himself. And then we've seen your barbecue, which is really cool from an upcycling perspective. And I love that part of your work where you're upcycling and you're taking things and you're turning them into new things and you're giving things a
Yeah,
second life. And that is something for me personally is all what I'm about. And I absolutely love stuff like that. So what would you
oh,
tell to makers about how to get involved in the maker movement, get involved in making? What bit of advice would you give them?
the the first thing to do is have an idea. Find something that you really like, and be realistic as well. Like you don't want to see a big, huge light. That can you make it? You have to really like, can you make it? Have you got the tools to do it? And where can you put it when you're done? So you always have to just think about a project. Start simple and do start. That's the main thing. Give it a go. The very first thing I ever made was my dog's doghouse, L pallets. The materials were free. The information was on YouTube and on the internet. Ideas, there was an abundance of them all through. All you have to do is Google search something, or Etsy is absolutely
Yeah,
fantastic, or Pinterest. There's so many different things. And all you have to do is go onto Instagram, put in your likes, and you'll start coming across awesome makers like Nathan and all the other awesome guys that are out there. Um, just give it a go. And don't fret on not having the right tools. You'll pick up these things as you go. Um, Always have a plan of action, and most of all, have fun and enjoy it. Like you don't do these things to stress yourself out. You do them to unwind and to take you into your zen. So always remember, if you're gonna do something, make sure you enjoy it. So
absolutely brilliant. I've absolutely loved this time with you. And listen, hopefully I'll see you at Dublin Maker. If anyone is interested in coming to Dublin Maker, it is fast approaching. There should be some details down in the description of this video. You'll probably see me and Vicky walking around. You'll probably see me chatting to Steve, and we'll probably be talking the hind legs off each other. So, guys, until next time, I'm just going to go straight to the outro, and that's it from us. This has been the Irish Maker podcast. I've been your host, Nathan Wheeler. This episode was engineered and mixed by Vicky Toomey Lee. Thank you to our sponsor, Coding Grace. Music provided by Gertie Beats. Follow the Irish Maker podcast on social media at the Irish Maker podcast. And if you're a maker or you know a maker who should be on this podcast, then send us an email at irishmakerpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.